talk about women. These women, to be precise. Have you noticed Padme Amidala and her daughter Princess Leia Organa, pretty much the only two women of note in Star Wars for a long time, kind of go through the same downward trajectory? At the start of both trilogies, our female lead kicks butt and takes names, and is right in the middle of all the action. In the second installment, they're mostly isolated from the main plot, falling in love with one of the other leads. Then in the third movie, they barely do anything at all. I mentioned that George Lucas likened the prequel trilogy to poems that should rhyme with the original trilogy. The idea of echoing what people loved about the original trilogy, not only is it a clever way to connect these films to something you know people enjoyed, so it's good business sense, but it also feels kind of mythologically powerful, if I may be allowed to be a little pretentious. But there are times I wish this trilogy tried to rhyme a little less with the original trilogy, especially when the only women in the saga end up doing nothing by the end of their respective trilogies. I do not want to be that guy pointing a finger at George Lucas saying, "You anti-woman thug, how do you sleep at night?" I'm not convinced Lucas deliberately sidelined these characters. By Return of the Jedi, he was getting tired of Star Wars, and he had a lot of narrative balls he was juggling, so Leia just kind of hanging out with no real impact on the plot, that probably wasn't intentional. And with the prequels, he probably wanted to give as much care to Anakin's fall to the dark side, and maybe he was thinking Padme's pregnant, she can't fight in a war like she was in Phantom Menace. And what's good enough for the goose is good enough for the gander. Han Solo also has a diminished role in Return of the Jedi, so I don't think Lucas was consciously thinking about gender when he sidelined these characters. But it is interesting that this lines up with both ladies taking a back seat after featuring so prominently at the beginning of their trilogies. And I don't want to fall into the trap of saying strong female characters must do air quotes manly things like pick up guns and shoot their problems in order to be strong characters. I've seen people who echo that line of thinking, and whether intentional or not, what they're saying is these ladies should act more like men for us to take them seriously. Heck nah. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm saying these characters doing things that society traditionally says is more feminine, like giving birth and wearing a dress and getting kidnapped by teddy bears, that makes them weak. No. As far as I'm concerned, a weak character is an inactive character, regardless of the superficial things they're doing, like knitting or lifting weights. I hear people campaign for more strong female characters, and not to put words in other people's mouths, but I think what they want are interesting characters. Sansa Stark is not physically strong, but she is interesting, especially when you compare her with some of the other ladies whose narrative she parallels. Her sister Arya wants to do the things society thinks is more manly, and according to society, these things are unfit for a woman. Arya looks down on Sansa for wanting to find a nice, handsome, strong prince to marry and give lots of sons to. Sansa looks down on Arya for not wanting to sew and for practicing swordplay with the butcher's boy. Brienne also does what society deems to be manly, becoming a knight, going into battle, but she has parallels with Sansa, as they both saw the world in a very simplistic, naive way, and they have to adjust their worldviews. Neither Olenna nor Marjorie Tyrell are physically strong, but I find them both interesting. With Star Wars, you have less than 9 hours in a trilogy, and with Game of Thrones, you've got over 70 hours of TV and thousands of pages of books. One franchise has much more time and space to explore gender identity than the other, but I don't think you can entirely blame a tight runtime on Princess Leia getting nothing to do in Return of the Jedi. Movie making is hard, but when you take a look at a script and you notice a character could be written out of the movie and it wouldn't change the plot, that's something you should notice and take steps to avoid, even if you've got 1,000 other aspects of the movie to worry about. What if Princess Leia had to weigh the importance of Han's life in the hands of Jabba? All that manpower needed to rescue him, could that be put to better use against the Empire? Yes, I love him, but I lost an entire planet and refused to budge when the Empire wanted me to list names. One man's life surely isn't that important when it comes to winning a war. Luke could convince her Han is a valued military leader and could be useful against the Empire, and she finally okays the rescue mission. You don't spend too much time on this, but it shows Leia is a military leader and isn't just the romantic lead who needs a big strong man. Even unintentionally, characters can fall to the side, and even if it's not intentionally a gender thing, it can appear that way. And it might look worse when you did pretty well with the ladies earlier in the series. That's it for this one. I don't know if I said anything worthwhile here, but if I did, or even if I didn't, well, may the Force be with you.